No.
That's my mission. That's my mission in life, to educate, enlighten, outrage, elevate.
I'm trying to think of some other adjective.
I know. Denigrate. Gave me the courage to pursue touching up our roots and to do all the different things I wanted to do with that group, which I'm doing, this is part of what I think I'm old.
You're all right.
It's like 70. Jesus Christ, 70.
Well, the
How is that possible?
Let me tell you, a good thing about being 70. For me, I felt that was a momentous. The word 70.
I know.
But then I said, but I don't feel any different. So
there you go.
So I was okay, and it's only now I'm getting creakier and things than in the 80s and all. So I think, but my 70s I was okay. So you're all right.
All right, I'm Dave Hayward, and I am the coordinator of Touching Up Our Roots. So here I'm honored to be with Dr. Ara Dostourian, who is a legendary figure, legendary in history. So what I'm going to do first is talk a little about your background. So you were born in Rhode Island?
No, New York City.
Oh, you were born in New York City?
Yes.
Oh, good. I stand corrected.
Yeah, that's
okay. And what do you want to say the date?
May 8th, 1933.
May 8th, 1933.
At the Women's Hospital in downtown.
Women's Hospital.
Women's Hospital.
So did
Lower New York
Did your
City.
parents live in New York City?
Yeah.
They did?
Washington Heights, Upper.
Washington Heights. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell us about your dad and your mom, please.
Well, let's see where to start and all. Both of them were immigrants and.
From Armenia?
From Armenia.
From Armenia.
Well, actually, which was that historically, it was actually my dad came from a part of Turkey, which was part of historic Armenia.
Oh, okay.
But my mother came from near Istanbul, so that wasn't part, But Armenians, like a lot of these Near Eastern, where they spread around, they go back and forth. So, and my dad actually left. He was born in 1893. He left Turkey when he was 20 years old. He was escaping the Ottoman draft. This was in 1913.
Oh, wow.
So so they were, he escaped. Well, not escaped, but he wanted to get away. And there were Armenians coming to this country. This in 1913. So he came.
So that's when he came.
That's when he came. Settled in Providence, actually.
Oh, Rhode Island.
And then worked in Providence. Then. Worked in. We have relatives in Worcester too. Well, all the Dostourians. Dostourians. There's a lot of people. Dostourians in Worcester.
A lot of Dostourians
in Worcester and
Worcester, Massachusetts.
Worcester and Providence.
Okay.
Relatives. I mean, they're getting less.
Like a lot of names in the phone book. Dostourian.
Anyway, so.
And your mother, when did she come?
Well, wait. Let me. So my dad. Yeah. Well, that's what I'm getting to. So my dad actually. Then he moved to New York in the early 20s and he became a taxi cab driver. He bought a taxi license. Okay. And then in the late 20s, he went over to France, visited France, and he met my mother.
In France?
And he married her, yes, and brought her over here in 29. Okay. And then I came in 1933.
Oh, okay.
So, and then...
so what was she doing in France?
She was a seamstress, actually.
Okay. And what city in France?
Paris, actually.
Paris?
Yeah.
Was that in Paris?
Yes, so she was there and that. And he came
your mother,
to 29.
Parisian seamstress.
Yes. Well, she did. She, in fact, her second language was French.
Oh, really? Okay.
And she knew. Well, she eventually learned English, but her French was always better than her English.
Ah.
And then she worked in Saks Fifth Avenue in the alterations department, where the custom dress department, and they were mostly French speaking.
Oh, okay. So did you grow up speaking French?
Well, in fact, I was telling you, I took a lot of French. No, we didn't do it at home.
You didn't?
we didn't like but later I learned French, and then I think the accent and all, it helped knowing my mother's, so.
That's great.
So we, and it became, for me, even after my English and Armenian, my French was pretty good, though I told Keller that we were talking before that I lost a lot of that, that I don't,
So you were born in 1933 in Washington Heights. And so then did you guys live in New York for a while?
Well, went to PS 189.
Oh, okay.
And then went to the local high school, George Washington High School.
In New York City?
Yeah, and then went to City College.
Okay, because I always thought you
you know me from the New England connection, right?
Yeah,
well, because I got this job, I went to school let me just quickly go through this. So then I went to CC at City College, and just to put it in a summarize.
And what did you major in?
Languages and history.
Oh,
I had a double major,
okay.
so I did. And then I went to
double major. Wow.
Yeah, well, I did it, because I liked both, and I continued that.
And you were good at both.
And and then I went to, after that I got an MA I went for an MA in medieval history at Fordham University. So it was a Catholic.
Now where is Fordham again?
Well, there's an uptown and downtown. I went to the uptown off
in New York City.
In the Bronx. It was on
Fordham. Okay, I've heard of it.
Fordham.
I'm not sure exactly what it is.
Fordham. So that was a 1.5 year thing. But when I hadn't. When I left, it was 1.5 years I got the coursework done. But then I decided that I wanted to be a priest.
Oh.
Much to the chagrin of my mom and dad.
Now, you didn't have any
I was the only child.
You were an only child?
Yeah.
Okay, because I wasn't clear about that.
Yeah, right. Okay. That was hard for them.
So you wanted to be a priest in what faith exactly?
Well, very. I had my background on that is, though I was born and baptized, I was baptized in the Armenian Orthodox Church, which is basically like Greek Orthodox, Syrian,
Okay.
But my mother had a close friend, Armenian friends she was Protestant, they were Protestant Armenians. So through those friends, I did Sunday school in a local church, in a Baptist church, Northern Baptist. And really that's when I had my first experience as a Christian. I don't know if because they emphasize the gospel and they emphasize a religious experience, which the Orthodox and the Catholics don't eat.
Yeah, I don't remember. I was raised Catholic. I don't remember really reading the Bible.
Right.
We didn't really read the Bible.
But I had this background and then though in my late teens or mid-teens, no, maybe my mid-teens, I said, well, my heritage is the Armenian church, and maybe it was more like nationalism, I don't know. So I went to the Armenian church then, and then I sang in the choir and all, but I never lost that Christian, that Christian spiritual stuff that I got from the Baptists, that probably motivated me for seminary, because what I wanted to do in the Armenian church was to serve. It wasn't the Armenian, it was the Christian aspects.
So of course my next question about that would be, so you want to be a priest, but at the same time, I assume you have all these gay feelings.
Oh yeah,
right?
That was a big,
So talk a little, so when did you first think that you might be gay?
Oh wow. In high school. I was.
Because some people say when I was like 5 years old or something.
Yeah, I know. Well,
in high school, okay.
It was more like high school, and it's murky, and I'm sure other people can say the same.
Yeah, it is for me too.
But one aspect that was I wasn't my mother was very sharp about this. I wasn't developing sexually the way I was supposed to.
Okay.
So my mother...
What does that mean?
Well, it means that...
And your mother notices this?
My mother noticed
oh my God.
I was being too straight. She wanted me to gay. No. But my mother, there was a neighbor that we had, and the two sons, her son and the two of us, seemed not to be developing. We were having, people develop puberty at a certain time. We weren't developing.
Oh, that way.
It was, yeah. So it was a hormonal issue. So in those days, actually, they did have some. So I was sent to a doctor. I got hormone shots.
Oh, okay. Because your puberty was late.
Late, and I always kid with, and they made some truth.
Well, you made up for it.
I think they gave me too much, so I haven't.
Oh, too much?
Yeah, there was too much.
Too much testosterone.
Yeah, and I could never keep it down. So, I hope this anyway.
Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, that's true.
So your mother noticed this.
At this age, I mean, I think I attribute that to my, with my sexuality now. I mean, I attribute that to getting too much hormones. But anyway, yeah.
So you were about 16 or so, and did you?
I remember it had to be. Well, let me.
About 16.
It was
1949, basically.
Yeah, I think I was 15. I think it was more like 16 that I began
16,
to, like with things like masturbating, erections and things, all of that really came a little late because here I was.
Yeah, you're late.
But as I said, I think they gave me too much of these hormones.
So you had to make
so
up for lost time. You had to catch up.
Yeah, I think I But anyway, so getting with the priesthood thing, I remember like growing up in my late teens and all. I mean, I'd have these feelings. So I was going to say this. I was it's maybe in my first. Let's see. How old? Like when you're in high school? Okay, I get out of elementary school. I'm 14. So you see, and I think I'm getting started on these hormones. Then I'm 15 and maybe 16. Yeah. So around 15 and 16, I began. Well, I think 15. I must have started. Having these feelings for guys.
Did you ever have a boyfriend?
I was attracted. I remember telling like in gym there was some attraction. This fantastic kid. He was a sweet guy, and things like. So I did have these attractions, and all. But I didn't do anything about it, and
So nothing happened. Oh.
No.
Poor
and
Jack.
So it was hard, And then I know there were inklings of gay guys around because I remember when my wrestling partner in who actually didn't. Well, anyway, I won't get into that. That's fun. But he was very sweaty.
Very sweaty.
Yeah, but I think he was gay because when we wrestled, he. It was
You got hard?
No, I didn't. No, I don't think so. I don't know. But it just the atmosphere was such that that we maybe connected or something, and it was hard to really hard. So I was very innocent in a way, but I did know that, and I don't know when I started this, but I did do some cruising. And I was living in Washington Heights, and I think not in early high school, but maybe in late high school or when I got to college.
Around 1950, something like that.
Yeah. I did cruising in the neighborhood.
Were there actually sort of cruising places, cruising areas? Because there's always talk about parks and trails and. Yeah,
but it was. I don't. It wasn't a very developed type thing, I think, where I think as time went on, I think there was more of that went on, but yeah.
What's interesting to me about that is that I think that is also a demarcation of gay liberation. Is that as gay liberation especially happened, through the 60s, then suddenly there were particular places, where gay men would congregate, like in parks and stuff like that. And this was known as sort of the cruising area, the gay cruising area. So you're saying that didn't really exist
it might have, but I wasn't aware of it until later, I got. And then this one, even when I was in seminary, then and in Boston actually, Episcopal Theological School.
So when was that?
That was in after I left. In 55 I finished my coursework at Fordham. 55, and I still had to, and I think I did. I took my exams and I passed them, but I still had to write the thesis, the dissertation.
Oh, okay.
But And I should have done that immediately, but then I decided to be a priest. So, and again,
and your parents weren't happy about that?
No, yeah.
Okay.
They weren't. In fact, my mother wasn't, neither of them were religious. My dad was an open atheist.
Really?
He joined the New York, in those days there wasn't the New York Humanistic Society, which basically was an atheist group.
Oh, okay.
And he would tell me, I don't even have an 8th grade education, he would say to his friends. And my son is going to college, CCNY, and he has all this education, and he believes in all this superstitious stuff. Oh. And if I prayed at the table, we'd do he'd start laughing, and
really?
He was really.
And your mother was religious?
No. But she would say, I think your dad, she said, it's okay to be religious, but don't overdo it. So she wasn't really, and my dad would say, why should I go to church? Are the walls made of candy or something? He was funny. But now when I decided to be a priest.
Well, before you get on that, let me ask you another question about that.
But I want to get back to that.
What I wanted to talk to you about was, what about your parents politically? Were you raised in a particular political?
Yeah, my dad voted communist in New York.
Oh, he did.
And my mom tried to get her the place where she worked at. She and a few other people tried to unionize it, but they didn't succeed. So I came from I'm not what is known in the socialist parlance is red diaper babies. Those are kids that their parents were active communists.
Right.
But I wasn't. No, because my dad wasn't. He was a communist. He was pro-union. He told me you never cross a picket line. He was very very much that way. But he never. He would belong to this humanistic society. But he never joined the Communist Party. But he'd vote communist. He would always.
So did he encourage you to be a communist?
He didn't really have to, because as growing up, not crossing a picket line, I came to it in a way myself. And ultimately, when I went to seminary, I took a course in Christian socialism, and that's when I started getting involved. I joined the Socialist Party.
Okay.
And from there, get into more radical groups, and I belong to this day Solidarity, which is one of the socialist groups in this country.
Well, there's the Metro Democratic Socialist Alliance here, the DSA.
Oh, the Democratic Socialists of America. Yeah, they're very close. Yeah, that's a reason.
And there's an the big Atlanta group.
Yeah, they're and my
so you didn't identify as communist.
My organization has there's dual membership people that belong to Solidarity and DSA. You can do that, you know. And I joined, and I give them money. I'm not active in it. I'm not that active in Solidarity either. But I also joined a number of years ago the International Workers of the World, Wobblies. It's probably one of the oldest socialist oriented. Well, they're sort of socialist and syndicalist. They're they're very pro-union. And some of their people are Marxists, and some of them are anarchists. So they have an interest.
So let me ask you this question. So then you go to seminary, and is there any conflict between being socialist and being in seminary?
No, actually, Christian socialism, actually, when you look at Christianity, there's connections. There's such a thing as Christian socialists. So it was pretty easy for me, and plus.
So were there other people in seminary who identified as socialists?
There was a few, but not many. Most, there weren't.
Okay, so just a couple of.
There's a couple of people, and then.
Because I would think that there's a sort of intrinsic conflict, but
no, actually, that people just don't really. If you look at the philosophy and all that, the whole idea, the gospel says to bring about a better world, to do away with poverty and war. We were talking about war, doing away with wars, bring peace.
Yeah.
I mean, the socialists and the Christian agenda, which also, by the way, would apply to the two other Abrahamic religions, Islam and Judaism. Mm-hmm. These religions actually have a more of a whole view of a holistic view of the world, of doing away with poverty and doing away with class structures and all that. So it really wasn't,
So how long were you in seminary?
Well, I went through I got my degree. It's a 3-year course that you take.
Okay.
But just a few words in seminary.
3 years.
The big struggle with me in seminary was the gay issue.
Okay.
You see, and in fact, I had, that's when, well, I didn't really come out in the sense, it was sort of indirect. We had a number of, seminaries are full with gay.
Well, that's my question.
Oh yeah, there was, but it was very, it was very.
What's going on?
Yeah, it was.
Because you all in a dorm together? In a dorm?
Yes, I had a roommate that I still keep in contact with, and all that.
Oh, you're still in contact?
Yeah,
oh,
that's
amazing.
So
that's great.
he's down in.
So were things going on in the dorms?
Well, yeah, there were. In fact, I remember
surreptitiously.
Yeah, I remember this one guy.
Imagine.
Well, there's a couple, but one guy specifically that we were. One thing led to we were bombed, and there was a party and all, and we went to our rooms, and And
Christ was I drunk?
But
that was the get out of jail card. Christ was I drunk?
Why did
I don't remember a thing.
I don't remember. Yeah. But
I feel good, but I don't remember anything.
It was right there. So there was, so that really my struggles. Of course, I had struggles before that because I was, before seminary. Well, in college and also in high school, when there were bouts here and there. But in seminary, it really hit you because. You began to, as from a Christian point of view, is this ethically right and all. In fact, I wrote, it was interesting, and my prophet allowed me to do this. It was I forgot what was it, a pastor? Wasn't it a pastor? I wrote, there was a book, Bailey, that had recently come out, Homosexuality and the Western Church or something. So I wrote a paper on that.
Okay.
On that,
It's about 1958, something like that.
Well, my 56 I came in, 57, okay. 58.
57.
Yeah, I wrote that, and people.
Well, that's way ahead of the curve.
You're right.
And that's like just after Kinsey, after the Kinsey report.
Yeah, and also after. Remember, we discussed this last week, and I forgot about. There was this guy who wrote the Invisible. He was the first one, 1950. It's I have it at home. I should look it up. It's it was a very well-known author, and he wrote about the cruising and all the struggles gay people had. And that was the first book that I'm sure you're familiar with. I mean, it was the first book that came out in the early 50s on that. Wow. And then a little few years later, then this Bailey Christianity and people beginning to write about this stuff. Mm-hmm. So that.
Well, that's when I think homosexuality became sort of part of the public lexicon. Is around in the 1950s.
And then the British,
but still very
negative. Well, the Wolfenden Report, all of that was in England. And then of course the Mattachine, the Mattachine Society.
So let me ask you about that. So the Mattachine Society, from what I know, started in 1950 in Los Angeles. Harry Hay, who was a communist, right? He was the founder, and other people with him. But he was the person that they credit was starting the Mattachine Society. Right. So did you have any contact with them?
That was a little too early. Hayes is older than I am. He was. So that was 49. I'd be like in my
16,
teens, so 16, 17.
But were you aware of Mattachine that existed?
I'm not sure at that time, but certainly right after that.
Especially when you did this report, it seems.
Oh yeah, I said I was just going to say.
Then you'd be.
By the time I did the report, and in City College, I might have even had some inklings of it too.
Okay.
And City College, I mean, there was, I went through a lot of stuff. It was hard, as far, I don't know, picking up people, but again, as I said, I think my pickup cruising things came really in my late period in Washington Heights, where we're talking about my late high school, early college.
Right.
And City College was really down the road. I mean, you had to take a bus. It was on 137.
So did you actually go to gay bars?
No, not in New York City.
Okay.
When I was living, I think I was scared to do that. I heard about it.
So you weren't scared to go to the parks, but you were scared to go to the bars.
Yeah, and also
interesting.
And also, I wasn't that street smart about gay bars. I wasn't a bar person to begin with.
Okay.
So all this all came later. But I do want one thing. With my struggles, and especially in seminary, the struggles became the worst because I'm gay. How can I be a Christian gay? And then what?
And how can I be a priest?
Priest, I'll be crucified. Yeah. And in that period, I was active. You're right close to Harvard. You know, we were in the same area.
Yeah.
Episcopal. And in fact, we could take courses at Harvard. Even Harvard, because there was a connection we had with Harvard.
So let's be clear. So Harvard is in Boston, and so there was. This
is Cambridge. It's a suburb of Boston.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
But you were.
I was in Cambridge.
Well, you're in Cambridge.
I'm in seminary now.
Okay.
See,
all right, I'm sorry. And that was in
1956.
Right.
1956 to 59.
In Cambridge and in Boston.
Yeah. Well,
okay.
but
I'm sorry. I didn't know.
We were on one side of Harvard Square,
right.
and Harvard was on the other. I mean,
right.
there was some very famous churches and colonial stuff and all.
We were right in Boston.
Right. Well, I know more of Cambridge. I mean, I got into Boston, but Cambridge was, But we were, the Charles River. Fantastic cruising spots. I picked up. I mean, I was guilty as hell. And in fact, we had the keys. We had the key to the chapel. So you go to pray and all that. So I went to pray. I'd go and get sex, and then I'd come into the chapel and say, Lord, forgive me. I prostrate myself under God, the altar, and all this other crap. I went through a lot of shit, and I did all this.
Well, it's funny because what I wanted to relate to is being raised Catholic myself, and then the whole idea about how we had to regularly go to confession.
Yeah.
And then the thing they always talk about being Catholic. Did you guys have confession? Did you go? You actually go and go?
Well, the Armenians had more. I mean, they should have more. The Orthodox have that's the major type of confession. But we would do a lot of the general confessions as a group. The Episcopalians do that too, and
okay.
So we did. But so I was used to that.
Well, what I wanted to do is so we, and being raised Catholic, which I was, we would have one-on-one confession, and you would go into the little vestibule and confess to the priest, and and that was something that you had to do on a regular basis.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. It has been X amount of time since my last confession. So now I can say, bless me, Father, for I have sinned. It's been 50 years since my last confession.
Well, you see, I couldn't do. We would do a general, but you can't. My way of confessing was, late at night after I was at a tryst on the Charles River.
A tryst.
Whatever you want to call it.
I love it.
Just a couple of blocks away to the chapel, open the door and prostrate myself and just let it all out.
So did you feel badly for being sexual?
And I did this a lot of times. And then I was also
so you kind of internalized the homophobia.
Yeah. But I knew there was maybe a home intern or something in the seminary. We had a bunch of us that were gay and related to each other.
And you knew each other.
Yeah, but we didn't we didn't do sex with each other for whatever reason.
You were just sort of socially out to each other.
And then there was.
Did you support each other? I mean, did you kind of?
Yeah, on and off, but we weren't really. We weren't too politically conscious on gay issues, I think. I mean,
well, that came much later.
Yeah.
And Mattachine and the Daughters of Melitus, the lesbian group, were forerunners.
I had a little bit of that because of my socialism, just because that's when I joined. So it was political. So I've always, even as a gay, I've always been political about the gay issue. And
so did you feel that gay people, lesbians and gays, that they were oppressed? Did you sort of?
Yeah, it was. I had inklings of that. I'm not sure that it was all really that developed.
So not in so many words that, hey, we're oppressed.
But that we were, and
I
always had a sense of, and we've talked. I had a sense of. I never was the gay bar type that would flitter. And remember when we tried to politicize people in the gay bar, they'd resent it and say we're not gay. We don't believe we're gay, but we don't need that. And my socialism really helped.
Well, but what I'm saying is that consciousness came later, and I think a lot of times, a lot of the things we're talking about, especially when we talk about you're growing up and being in seminary and the other seminarians is that you're out to each other, but it's very, it's kind of on the down low.
Yeah,
you're
not
tacit,
you're not,
and you're not talking about going out and demonstrating.
And what doesn't help is if you're a person like myself that's more politically oriented,
right?
And, sort of I'm kept down because my friends there just were completely out, even had even less of a consciousness on the political.
Did you ever participate in anything, like with Mattachine or anything like that?
No,
you didn't.
But from the early socialist days, because I joined the party in 1958, and there was some gay guys that were involved. In fact, one of them who was a very prominent, who recently died. And I knew him pretty well, David McReynolds. I don't know if you've, he's very big in socialist circles.
Was there a gay caucus in the Socialist Party?
Not in those days.
No, okay. Not in the late 50s.
But for the credit, but the tradition I joined, well, there was, I left the Socialist Party. It was in the early 60s, and joined. Phil Lambert also joined that same group, International Socialists, IS, which then morphed into what is Solidarity. So there's that continuity. When Phil and I joined International Socialists, what was it, 1976? Well, we met each other in. One thing, we met each other at Gay Lit, and then you came.
71 or 72, something like that.
Phil and I, and we were all together.
And Phil Lambert was part of the Gay Lit.
Then I was in contact with what IS that had recently gotten formed, 1969, International Socialists, and through that, I got Phil involved in it, you see. Yeah. And then he joined.
So let's get back. So did you graduate from seminary?
Yeah, but let me just say one thing, and I'll get to seminary and get back.
All right.
Well, the IS was the first socialist group in this country that had a gay caucus. And when I joined, they had just formed a gay caucus. This was in 1972.
Oh, 72.
So it was one of the earliest.
Wow, but still, 1972.
And they were the first ones to integrate gayness into socialist politics in this country. So it's quite a tradition. But now
let's go back a little.
Get back.
So did you graduate from seminary?
Graduate from seminary, but I want to mention something in seminary that your last year you have a tutorial professor that you pick, and I picked this guy who was in pastoral. He taught pastoral theology, Charlie Batten, who was known as quite a queen. I mean, he was married, and he had a gay dimension to himself. You could tell. He was very, and this was good because I opened up to him, and he was very, very. I mean, he didn't, bring himself. He was very, very open about, affirming me and everything like that. So that was a great plus. That's great.
And he was a professor.
Yeah, and he was married, and probably was like a lot of these guys.
Right.
Was gay and was married.
Right.
To a woman. I mean, maybe could have gone both, whatever. But as we've talked about now, I mean, there's such fluidity in this thing. As I said, if I could, watching gay porn on my computer, I mean, these straight guys are fucking sucking and kissing, soul kissing, and they're straight as whatever. So. It's all we live in. We live in a new. Well, and they're also maybe but they might even be, listen. They might be principally straight and be with their wife, but they can still do this other stuff.
Well, there's the whole thing about gay for pay when it comes to that. I am gay for pay. So let me ask you a question.
But anyway, I want
about this man. Was this man out to his wife? Do you think? Did his wife know?
I don't know.
Okay, I just wondered about that.
She could have, because he was very a very open person, and she was a very loving person, so, and she sort of looked a little butchy, so I don't know, she might have been, you never know these things. I mean, listen, the older I get, life doesn't seem to, it seems to amaze me, the varieties of things that take place. It's just unbelievable.
What I'm thinking of, if you remember the actress Ruth Gordon, she won the Oscar for Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah. And
she was married to Garson Kanin, the playwright. And I heard an expression, I think it's probably really antiquated. They had an expression, a white marriage. So he was known as a gay man, basically, Garson Kanin. And of course, she was, I guess, a heterosexual, woman, Ruth Gordon. But they had a long-term marriage. I mean, they were married until, one of the other women passed away. And that was sort of a deal that people made. So sometimes gay men would marry lesbian women. And then sometimes there'd be a situation like that where, I don't want to out Garson Kanin, whatever, is known to be gay, and he was married to, Ruth Gordon, I guess.
And then,
that was just sort of typical. That was one of the accommodations people made.
Yeah, so. And there's even like, as I said, with it is time.
What time is it?
It's about, we have 5 more minutes.
Okay, great. Okay, sorry.
Because I'm ahead.
Okay.
But like we said about Phil, I mean, who was pretty...
Let's identify... So Phil Lambert was part of the Georgia Gay Liberation Front, and he was married to Judy Lambert.
Yeah.
And so they were this bisexual married couple who were some of the founders, I believe, of the Georgia Gay Liberation Front, which was founded in 1969.
Well, I was part of that too.
Yeah, I was part of that too. Right, but she was I remember specifically, in 1972, Judy Lambert was the co-chair of the Georgia Gay Liberation Front with Bill Smith. And she and Bill Smith led the 1972 Gay Pride.
And all of us, in those early years, we came out of really the connections with Steve Abbott in the Great Speckled Bird. Steve Abbott is sort of the key that.
Yeah, we got to get to him. So let me try to follow chronologically. So you graduated from seminary, but you did not actually become a priest.
No. But
Okay.
Quickly, by my late seminary thing, I knew this wasn't for me. But I finished the degree. And
did being gay have a lot to do with that? Or not?
Oh yeah, it did.
Okay.
2 things basically. Being gay, and I said, I can't fucking see myself with all these heavy vestments, swinging incense pots. I never was into that stuff in the priests. And in the Catholics and more the Orthodox are into all these ceremonies. And I said, that plus my being gay. Okay. And then plus the narrowness of the church. I mean, even I'm a Christian, but I'm very uncomfortable with all these narrow, law and order stuff, and the churches that
so they're too conservative.
Conservative, just so many things that just. But what but so towards the end, then I really felt that this wasn't going to work, and then my mother knew that I wasn't. Well, I never finished my MA. I had to write the dissertation. And I said, well, why do I have to, since I'm going to be a priest, I don't need to do that. My mother said, she was very good. She says, you're out of your mind. She said, well, she did use the Armenian expression. What the hell are you crazy or something? You're out of your mind. She was very down to earth. She says, you're crazy. And she said,
she sounds like she was more the practical one than your father.
Oh, I think yes, you're right. Yeah, my dad was sort of floating around.
Take care of business. Get it done.
She was very busy.
Get the job done.
Yeah. But he was good when it came to labor. But she was more. So she'd get this thing. So.
And then as a result, then you became a doctor.
No. You skip ahead. I'll get to. Yeah. Okay. No, it was. I got it. So I went for my. So that's the summer of '58. I graduated in '59. The summer of '58, I devoted the whole summer to writing my dissertation.
Okay.
In fact, I used my degrees here from Fordham, and there was stuff. Oh, in fact, I went. You would.
And what was the subject of your dissertation?
Well, it was the relations between the Roman and Armenian churches during the pontificate of Innocent III. This pope, very famous. Innocent III. 1198 to 1216. So there was, what I did was, and of course, I've studied Latin. I could study Latin and I could read it. And so I went through there's a basic source for all the edicts and stuff of the popes, and the popes. Innocent wrote a bunch, all in Latin. He wrote letters to the Armenian Catholicos, the head of the Armenian Church. So I paraphrased, translated those letters, and then I also, on the Armenian side, because I knew classical Armenian, so I could work with both. So I wrote this dissertation, and that was it.
And then that got your master's.
And my mother was really, she was, now looking back, what an idiot if I had, because otherwise that would have prevented me going for a PhD and all these other things. So anyway, and then
listen to your mother.
Yeah, you're right. Well, yes, that's a good. There you go. So, well, then after that, I went to. Then I had a. Well, then I went to the bishop, who was a really asshole. I mean, there was a good bishop before that, but it was replaced by this.
The good bishop and the bad bishop.
Yeah. And the good bishop was wonderful. He was known as a father to his seminarian. I think it was pretty open that he was gay. In fact, they called him the Turkish. He was a Surmeli, which in Turkish, and the Armenians use Turkish words too. Surmeli meant a guy that's painted. So, but he was very flamboyant, and he had a beard, and he was very sophisticated. He came from Izmir, which in the Ottoman Empire in Turkey, and Izmir today, Smyrna, very cultured city, and he had a very cultured education, music, and he was very, very, wonderful. But they made fun. But he was probably gay. But he was a very loving guy.
So he was the bishop.
He wasn't. He was when I was there. He was the bishop. But then when then I think they got a new bishop, and this other guy was there. So I had to face him. And he had me in his office, and I said, well, Your Grace, what I wanted to do was I wanted to stay in the church, I was even willing to be ordained a priest, but I wanted to do education in the church. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to go, they needed a teacher in the Armenian seminary in Jerusalem, and that I could, and I wanted to really do that. Mm. And, he said, first he said to me, what do you know? He said, you know nothing. I mean, I should have told him, look here. I would have told him, now I would have told him off in a nice way. I mean, here when I went to see him, I had already 3 degrees, a BA, an MA, and a Master of Divinity. He went to Jerusalem. I don't know what what do you know? I said, well, I've studied classical. I tried to really present myself. He had nothing to do with this. To myself. So that was it. Then I said, well, I'm not going to deal with this. So
you just left.
And then I decided to become I knew I wanted to be a teacher.
When you became a teacher. Okay.
When
this
I really
is like
got
around
my
1960,
1959.
1959.
So that's a good place.
I was 10 years old.